All right, good evening and welcome to the Danvers Planning Board meeting of September 27th, 2002. We are bringing this meeting remotely also, so if you are going to speak, you would use the microphone and identify yourself. I will go through the agenda items. The first item is 30 Pickering Street, and that item has been continued at the applicant's request to our next meeting, which is October 12th. Can you get a motion to continue?
Sure. I'd like to move that we continue the application for 30 Pickering Street, request for site plan review pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaws submitted by Community YMCA of Danvers for property in the Residential 1, R1 zoning district. Applicant proposes to construct 2 front additions and associated modifications, Assessors Map 42, Lot 151. And at the applicant's request, move to October 11th, 2022 meeting.
Motion been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Jean, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. The next 2 items, just to let the applicants know, we only have 3 voting members this evening. So you would need a unanimous vote by the members if it goes to a decision this evening. If it does go to our next meeting, our missing members would have the ability to watch the tape and be able to vote and take any testimony at the next meeting. So without further ado, 367 Maple Street, request for site plan review pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaws submitted by NBA Danvers Veterinary Management, Inc. for property in the Residential 3 zoning district. The applicant proposes to increase the number of parking spaces at the property and associated site modifications, Assessors Map 25, Lot 24.
Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of NVA Danvers Veterinary Management, Inc. The applicant with me tonight is Ginny Gregg, the Director of Operations for NVA. Also with me tonight remotely is our project engineer, Russ Tedford. And we also have Dr. Myers here this evening from Danvers Veterinary Hospital. And we are seeking site plan approval for the property located at 367 Maple Street. It's located in the R3 zoning district. The veterinary hospital is a grandfathered use in that zoning district, and we are seeking site plan approval for a couple of things. One is a small addition, very small addition to the rear of the hospital, about 1,540 square feet. That basically is at the rear of the property and will fill in an area that's currently recessed on the building, and that will be used as treatment space that's needed for the hospital patients. And we are also proposing some additional parking on the site. The proposed modifications, because this was a grandfathered pre-existing non-conforming use, have been approved already by the Board of Appeals through a finding, and you do have a copy of that in your application package. The animal hospital began 1960s under Dr. Rivers and has been upgraded and modified by Dr. Myers and now operated by NVA over the years. We have about 3.8 acres of property, and we again are proposing about a 1,540 square foot addition to the rear, which will be for a treatment area. That proposed addition is fully conforming to the setback and density requirements as shown on the plan. We do show on the plan, I'm looking for my pointer. Oh, I got it. The proposed addition is here, and we are also showing a removal of a small portion of the existing home that's located on the property here at the rear of the site as part of this proposal. And that rear area was the subject of discussion, actually even as recently as last night at the Historic Commission meeting, where it was confirmed by the town archivist that that area that's shown to be removed actually is a recent build, about 1970s, having been constructed after after a fire on the property. And then the additional changes on to the current conditions are to increase the parking that we have on the site. And that's a significant improvement and enhancement to this site. Currently, if you've been out on the property, we have parking along what would be the easterly property up adjacent to the building, and we have some parking in the rear that's used primarily by employees. But we have a lot of mostly employee, overflow parking onto Old Maple Street. So part of this overall improvement to the site is to construct enough parking so there will not be overflow parking on Old Maple Street. And we are proposing to add a total of 44 new parking spaces. We have 31 existing parking spaces, and we're adding about 41 new parking spaces for a total of 75 parking spaces on the site. And that's being done in the back, which will be primarily for employee parking, as well as in the front. And again, Russ will be going over the plan with you. But these additional spaces are not being added as a result of the 1,500 square foot addition. They're being added as a result of the need that we have for additional parking for employees and patients, and primarily to eliminate the parking on Old Maple Street that is occurring now. We did have a neighborhood meeting and discuss these changes, and some of the improvements that you see, particularly on the landscaping plan, came about as a result of comments and suggestions made by residents and abutters during that neighborhood meeting. We've also had a number of meetings with planning staff as well. So again, the landscaping plan is quite robust, which Russ will go over with you. We're proposing some 25 new trees, as well as a lot of new shrubs, which will certainly make the site that's already attractive. It will make it more attractive. The addition to the rear of the building, the 1,540 square feet, is being constructed to have an exterior finish which is seamless to the existing building. It's going to look and flow in well with, look like and flow in well with the existing building. You do have both an architectural rendering as part of your package, and you also have a technical elevation drawing also. So I think with that, I'll turn it over to Russ to go through the details with you.
Mm-hmm. Good evening. For the record, my name's Russell Tedford. I work for Hancock Associates. I was the civil engineer on this project. Josh, if you just flip to sheet 2, that's the existing conditions sheet. So as Nancy said, the site is in need of additional parking and currently does not have any stormwater management on site. Water from the roofs, as well as the drive areas and parking areas, just flows overland to either the wetlands, as you can see on the right-hand side of the plan, or out to the sideline of Route 62 and Maple Street, where eventually it does discharge into the wetlands. If you could flip to sheet 3, Josh. So the proposed parking layout intends to increase parking in the northerly side with a bigger lot. I think it's about 38 spaces. Additionally, with this parking lot, there's going to be a asphalt sidewalk along the southerly side that leads up to the main entrance. Additional work includes tweaking the parking in front of the main entrance. Currently, there is handicap parking out there. There is one space allocated. We are proposing another handicap space. And in order to bring this handicap parking into compliance with ADA requirements, we are proposing to saw cut existing pavement and flatten out this area to a slope less than 2% to cover us on that. And these areas are called out on this site plan as proposed saw cut. As we make our way further south on the plan, the applicant is right next to the handicap parking near the entrance. The applicant is proposing to remove pavement, create a landscape island that will have snow storage plantings as well as lighting for the parking area. And finally, the parking area closest to the proposed addition also proposes 2 handicap parking spaces that are compliant with ADA requirements, as well as extending pavement to provide more stalls on the other end of the drive aisle, closer to Maple Street. And in doing that, we are proposing to remove the existing asphalt driveway in order to provide a larger 24-foot wide access for both entrances. And I mentioned before, the entrance on Route 62 is also being maintained. Additionally, for the house on the left-hand side of your page, they're proposing to relocate that driveway just on the left-hand side. Josh, if you flip to sheet 4. So the property is serviced by municipal water, sewer, electric. Currently, the electric service is overhead. This plan proposes to move it to underground, as well as modify the existing services. Currently, the animal hospital, its service ties into a manhole or some structure in front of the existing house there, and we're proposing its own service so it doesn't tie into the same point. Moving on to stormwater, so the proposed stormwater management for this site consists of 2 underground infiltration systems comprised of StormTech plastic chambers, intended to capture stormwater. There will be deep sump hooded catch basins placed in the parking area and pitched accordingly to capture all runoff. Soil testing on site showed that groundwater was very deep as well as very sandy soils. So in turn, we are recharging a lot of stormwater into the ground and meet that requirement per the state handbook. And the proposed overflow for these systems is shown on the plan as flared end structures. At the end of the flared end structures, there'll be riprap aprons wrapped in geotextile filter fabric in order to prevent erosion as well as dissipate stormwater velocity as it goes down the slope. Josh, if you could flip to the landscaping plan. So the applicant has retained James Emanuel, registered landscape architect. And as you can see, is providing a very robust plan with small trees, shrubs, ground covers all around the edge of the proposed parking lot in the northwest, as well as plantings in front of, in that landscape area that I talked about, in front of the proposed addition, and as well as on the Maple Street side. Additionally, there is restoration plantings. It's located at the southerly portion of the lot, closest to the wetlands. These plantings are native and intended to replace an old concrete or asphalt pad out there. And this was all confirmed and approved by Conservation Commission. And Josh, if you could flip through jump 2 sheets. The next 2 sheets are just detail sheets. One more. Yep. And this is a swept path analysis plan, and what it's intending to do is just show the maneuverability of a typical fire truck, ladder truck that's 47 feet long, about 8 feet 3 inches wide. As you can see, it's able to enter the site, Route 62, come through, make the required maneuvers to exit the site through Maple Street. I'd imagine fire department is either going to stage right at the main entrance or in the area of the proposed proposed addition. And I believe this plan has been approved by the fire chief as well. And the last sheet of the plan is the lighting plan. So our lighting consultant, Bob Caldera from Hooray Associates, has proposed lighting plan. What he has several pole-mounted fixtures throughout the parking area. As you can see, their styles vary. There is the more ornamental, we call it the Athens pole-mounted light fixture, to be in front of the building facade, and in other areas further away from the parking area, it's more traditional, what you would see in a normal parking lot, what we call the Solaris pole-mounted light fixture, as well as additional bollard light fixtures around walkway areas to provide additional lighting in the proposed walkway. And yeah, Nancy, that wraps up the site plan. I'd like to turn it back to you if you have anything further to add.
I think that's it. We've had a couple of round of comments with the engineering department, and I believe we have satisfied those. We submitted, I believe this afternoon, a revised comment on a couple of items, but we certainly will take a condition that we will satisfy any of the engineering comments. They were technical, quite technical in nature, and really didn't have much to do with the specifics of this application for your review. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Questions from the board? Lou?
Sure, yeah, just starting off, I think it was just mentioned already, just in terms of other approvals. So the Conservation Commission has already, has weighed in on this
Yes.
proposal?
Yes, as well as the Board of Appeals.
Got it, yes, okay. And in terms of the, knowing, of course, that the house is, has been before, the Preservation Commission. I know there was referenced in the, in the application. I think also engineering made a reference to the division of the lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's anticipated for that? Is that planning? I'm just trying to figure out where that's going to be. Is that going to come back to us in terms of like an A&R?
Yes.
It will.
Yeah, that will have to come back to you in the form of an A&R. What we would have to do first is go to the Board of Appeals for a lot area variance for the house lot. And then the design and what you're seeing here for your site plan approval accommodates that, and the layout it accommodates that new lot line, which would be put in approximately.
Yeah, if you can just point out sort of what the approximate line would be.
Okay. So it's going to run probably right on the edge of, this is the house.
Sure.
Right here along the edge. We're taking out, as Russ said, we're taking out some of the pavement here. And that's going to now be grass, so that's going to give a little more of a buffer to the house than it currently has. And the lot line we're expecting would come in here, and this area is going to be removed.
Okay.
And then it would just kind of come back here.
I see.
So by removing this newer addition, again about 1970s addition,
Right.
We're giving just a little more area for creating that new lot line. So this plan, this site plan layout accommodates that, should the Board of Appeals grant us that variance. And as you're a member of the Preservation Commission, I would anticipate that we would be going back to the Preservation Commission saying the demo delay bylaw worked as it was supposed to, because the original presentation to the Preservation Commission was demolish the entire house.
Sure.
And you imposed a demo delay. Now we would go back to the Preservation Commission and we would say, we're only going to remove the back part. You lift the delay over that back part and describe how that we intend to seek a lot area variance from the Board of Appeals. Should the Board of Appeals grant that, we would have to come back to you for an A&R.
Got it. Okay, thanks. I just was sort of wanted to see how things went procedurally, so that's helpful. Just a few questions then in terms of the site plan itself, as opposed to the approvals. In terms of the new, the parking, and I know there was mentioned about the employees, really there's a lot of use of Old Maple Street. And so I imagine then that the number of parking spaces, the addition of the parking spaces would be enough to accommodate those who would otherwise be parking overflow on Old Maple?
That's right. Currently, there are approximately 9 parking spaces in the rear,
Sure.
which is where the employees park. We are increasing that to 26.
Okay.
So that's really going to take care of all of the employee parking, so the employees will not have to park on Old Maple Street. They will all be accommodated on site, which they will be very happy about, and I'm sure the neighbors will be very happy about that. And then we're also adding some parking in the front. We currently, along the side, where the side parking is, we have 22 spaces now, where between the side and the new front parking lot, we'll have a total of 49 parking spaces. So we're increasing that as well.
And in terms of the use, I mean, it's maybe a larger lot on the Old Maple Street side, it would be anticipated that the employees would be using that, so it would be less, more of a static use of the lots during the day as opposed to people with their pets coming in and out.
That's right, and the rear addition area actually has a door in it, which would be more for employees to come in and out of,
Sure.
which is immediately adjacent to the employee parking.
Okay, got it, okay. In terms of the lighting around the, and I know it was mentioned in terms of that, there are 2 different types of lighting that would be used. What would be used most likely, on, again, more siding on the residential side in terms of facing Old Maple?
Russ, can you answer that for me?
This is more of a concern for the neighbors in the immediate area.
You're muted, Russ.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so you're referencing Maple Street side, correct? Down
Maple
towards the
Street.
bottom of the page.
Yes.
Okay. I believe so, and the key on the plan would give it away. I believe it is this Solaris pole-mounted light fixture, and these are going to be, fixed towards the parking lot facing the building. In retrospect, so it's not directing any sort of light towards our abutter to the north, as well as our abutters to the southeast.
Okay. Got it. So it would be more directed towards the parking lot itself as opposed to, just coming out into the neighborhood.
Yes. The ornamental, we call them the Athens pole-mounted light fixtures. They're more planned for along the building facade as well as the landscape island adjacent to the addition.
Okay.
And though, as you can see on the plan, it's kind of hard to tell, but their intensity doesn't reach as far as the other fixtures would be. These are more intended to be localized, not more so. They are for utility, but honestly, they're more for visual and better for appearance.
Got it. Okay. And I guess just the last question I have is in terms of I know you mentioned that there was a neighborhood meeting, any, which resulted in some change here. Any outstanding issues with the neighbors? Are they? I know I think we have some tonight here, but any outstanding comments? Any outstanding concerns?
No, I think we've addressed those. We've added some landscaping. And the big issue was parking on Old Maple Street.
Okay.
So I think we've addressed that by providing the additional parking.
Yes. That's good. Thank you. I have no further questions, Jim.
Okay, thanks, Lou. Jean?
No, I don't have any questions.
All right. I think you've done a great job with the plan and the landscaping and so on. I don't really have a lot of questions. I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the public and see if anyone in the audience has a question regarding the plan. If you do, again, you can approach the mic, and I identify yourself, and the questions will be directed through the chairman to the applicant.
Evening, Jay Martell, 380 Maple Street. I'm a direct abutter of the property. We own similar 3 acres directly behind. I surprisingly and mistakenly found notice of this planning meeting tonight. This is the first I'm hearing of this. I'm a direct abutter. I was never notified of a neighborhood meeting, never notified of anything of this scale and scope being proposed in our backyard. As Ms. McCann said, this would be an improvement to the site. It may. It's a detriment to the neighborhood and to the wetlands and to the traffic impacts that are already impacted by the large-scale addition of St. John's Prep, which causes traffic issues in the morning and the evening. I am a direct abutter on Maple Street. I have 4 children myself. There's a few dozen school-age children in that neighborhood. The parking issues on Maple Street are an issue, not to me personally, but they're very noticeable. We walk that area. It's a dead-end street. What's more noticeable to us is the speed that the traffic comes in and out off that dead-end street with no regard for the citizens of that area and that neighborhood. My largest concern is not the scope of this and them expanding. I'm not trying to stop a business in town from expanding. My issue that I would harp on and vehemently oppose is the approval of this site plan with access from the parking lot still to Old Maple. If they're proposing to increase to triple the parking, whatever those numbers are, I think that a concession would be that they can only access with that volume of traffic from Route 62, which is appropriate to handle any traffic that's transiting from currently you can transit from 62 through the property back to Old Maple, which I'm not sure the actual amount of people that do that, but there's an increase in traffic in that. Other than that, I mean, like I said, I'm surprised at the scope of this. I keep an ear to the ground on most things, and I'm aware of a lot of real estate in the area and in town that goes on. But it's sort of disappointing that they're saying that there was a lot of input from the neighborhood. My land abuts right to the back of where their rear driveway is, and I have not heard a thing about this. So that's all I'd like to say. I'd just like the planning board to consider, and I know that we've missed the boat, and this is an 11th hour sort of voice for this to oppose it, but without any further information, I would be against it without any of those concessions I had mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh, do we know if people got a butter notice 300 feet?
I have the load.
I bel-
Yeah, I got the list here. don't see
Yeah, I believe
380.
so. I'd have to do a little bit. I'd have to do a little bit digging at like some of the records, but we do have,
It's
we
in
do
your
have a
application
documentation that stuff was sent out from the post office from the applicant team. So,
Yeah, there were 3 different hearings where abutters notices would have gone out, and it's based on the assessor's records and the certified abutters list from the assessors. That would have happened for Conservation Commission, Board of Appeals, as well as Planning Board.
Yeah, I don't see 380 listed.
Yeah, I don't see 380 on the list. But he's here this evening, so I guess the question is, just in response to his chief concern, Attorney McCann, on the need for still accessing Old Maple Street in light of the new parking. Is there a strong need to continue that?
Yes, yeah, there is, and Russ can speak to this as well, but there is a strong need for it, so that it's been that way since 1960. And that certainly provides the maneuverability. Russ had put up a schematic for the fire vehicles to come through there as well. Hopefully, that's something that wouldn't be needed, but of course, for site plan approval, we have to provide for emergency access. But yes, and I think what we are proposing is a dramatic improvement by eliminating the parking on Old Maple Street.
So
We're
understanding
proposing,
the fire department needs and so on,
Mhm.
I guess the question I have is, would the applicant agree to a condition that the applicant's employees would agree not to park on Old Maple Street? So really, I guess if someone was gonna access the site, I would assume they're gonna access it, a customer would normally go through Route 62. I mean, why would they go through Old Maple unless they live in the
They
neighborhood?
wouldn't. Yeah.
So would the applicant, in light of the new parking scheme, be willing to accept a condition to require his employees not to park on Old Maple Street and require them to park in the existing parking lots?
Yep. Yes,
Okay?
the answer to that. We will have plenty of space for that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So we'll put that condition in the decision on that.
Yes.
Other questions from members of the audience or comments? Sir?
My name is David Craig. I live at 370 Maple Street, and I am directly across from the animal hospital. I actually somewhat have to concur with my neighbor here that I did receive notice of a neighborhood meeting. Unfortunately, due to the unexpected arrival of a grandchild, I was not able to attend, but that was worth missing. I did receive notice of the Conservation Commission meeting, but I did not receive notice of this meeting or of the ZBA meeting. I'm not currently the owner of the house. The house belongs to my parents, but I'm in the process of purchasing it from them. Again, fundamentally, I have, you know, a few little detail things that actually George and I are gonna chat about, you know, just detail stuff. But I did have a couple questions as far as the significant expansion of the parking, the employee parking. Obviously, that's a good thing from the aspect of getting all the cars off of Old Maple, because it really clogs, quite frankly, clogs the road. And although my neighbor said it doesn't affect him, obviously being directly across the street, having the entire other side of the street, including sometimes in front of my mailbox, blocked by employee parking, and occasionally having it in front of my house as well, does have an impact on me as a neighbor. However, I'm concerned about completely changing the character of the neighborhood by essentially putting a commercial parking lot on the front lawn. You know, Ms. McCann characterizes the addition as being to the back of the building. It's a matter of semantics. I think of that as the front of the building, because that's where the front of the house is. So I have some concerns about that. I know that I believe there's some landscaping going in that's going to reduce the visual impact. It'd be nice if someone could show kind of an elevation. I've seen an elevation of the addition, and I'm very happy to see that it's keeping in character with the overall architecture of the site. I did at the Historic District Commission meeting last night compliment Dr. Myers on the additions that he's made so far, and how he has kind of kept the character of the site consistent with what had been there. Although I think the new buildings are in a little bit better shape than that old hay barn that used to be next to the hospital. A little bit, yeah. And I'm just, my main concern is as to I guess kind of how this addition and what looks like will be eventually a subdivision, and probably a request for rezoning of the commercial side of the property. I'm speculating, but it seems likely. How that's going to affect the character of the property that, I mean, selfishly, I have to look at every day when I leave my house. So I guess that's my question.
All right. Attorney McCann, if Russ could go through quickly the planting and the height on planting and the caliper, and just kind of maybe review that as vis-a-vis to the parking lots, especially the Maple Street side.
I can point as you talk, Russ.
Okay, so the larger symbols on that you see here, Josh, could you just zoom in on that portion, just so it's easier to talk about it? Yes. So the larger symbols are, you know, they're going to be planted small trees, 2 to 3 inch in caliber, expected to grow, 10 to 12 feet high. Those other symbols there, those are all shrubs, planted about 3 feet high, expected to grow to 4 to 5 feet in height. And any additional, ground covers, this 10 BAP is a ground cover. It's, pretty low lying. It won't provide any sort of visual screening, but I think that in terms of screening from the Old Maple Street side, the intent of the landscape architect was to be very robust in his plant schedule. And I think in this area here, we have over 30 plants just on this sideline.
How about the elevation from where the parking lot is? Is it sloped? Is there a little slope there? The different elevation?
Yes. So the finished floor of the building is at it's 74.6, and the elevation in both corners of this parking lot is around 74. So it's about 2 feet down. And Josh, if you could just scroll down a little bit, I can tell you the grade on, or just scroll down this page. You don't have to change sheets.
So we're at
Yeah, we're,
Yeah.
66, is it?
No, this is good here. So the kind of where the entrance is, the grade in Maple Street is around 70. It slopes down pretty drastically down to where the wetlands is. It's just how the road drainage carries it. So where this catch basin is, it's around elevation 66, and down towards the wetlands, it's elevation 62. So in terms of climb in elevation, it's about, just up the drive aisle, it's probably about 5 feet above where the grade in Maple Street is. And relative to the roadway, it's probably about 8 feet, give or take.
With the landscaping you're proposing, would there be any issues with headlights from cars possibly disturbing across the street this time of year, obviously, as we get into the fall and darker months? Is that
No, due to this kind of layout here where he's got, all these plants so close in vicinity, I think that was his intent, was to just provide the best screening possible to anyone on the other side of Maple Street.
So a lot of this is evergreen stuff in there?
I do believe there is some evergreens. These trees are elm and sycamore. I think some of these smaller shrubs here, these ERCs, are evergreens. But yeah, the majority being smaller shrubs with 2 to 3 inch caliber trees filling in if they can.
I'm just wondering, would a small fence assist with blocking lights from the parking lot, where you've got a large parking lot, like a 4-foot fence even?
Yeah, that's good, just to block the headlights.
Yes. I mean, well, yeah, block the headlights.
What do you think of that idea, Russ? A fence along that?
If the applicant is willing to provide it, it would definitely help further screen lighting. What type of fence would the board like to see? Stockade, vinyl, any preference?
I think vinyl's gonna last a lot longer.
I mean, yeah, I think the main consideration is
Blocking.
light blocking, whatever is a better light
screening.
blocker.
Right, so you'd want stockade?
Or vinyl.
Yep, a vinyl stockade.
Right. What are the hours of operation again?
The hospital closes at 7, at 7 o'clock, so you won't have folks coming in and out after 7:30.
Okay. I'll get to you in 1 second, sir, just in case there's additional questions from the board on this subject.
I think the inclusion of a fence, I think, is that they're willing to?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Sir, you had a comment? If you could use the mic, please.
Just on the topic of the fence, there's, can I take this with me to the,
Sure, just be
Okay.
very careful, because
Yep.
we've had experiences in the past that
I'll be gentle.
we don't want you to trip
So,
or get hurt.
right now, along the existing employee parking, there's a 3-rail livestock-style fence, which is continued down along the edge of the wetlands. Something like that across the front here would be, I think, a sufficient visual barrier in keeping with the character of the overall character of the property.
Did
and
you say
that-
split rail?
It's actually, it's not quite a split rail, it's a 3-rail lumber fence, square posts with rectangular rails. It is vinyl? Yeah. Not the same one I put in? Not the same one I put in 1984? No, okay.
Okay, it's not gonna let light go
Oh,
through.
there it is, okay.
It's not solid, but I think it's enough of a divider that it probably would, whereas a vinyl stockade or a vinyl panel fence would be quite different from, although it would match what's on the other side of but that's probably coming down for the driveway, right?
That's the picture.
What's on the other side of the house? So,
That's gonna let light go
I don't know,
through.
I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah,
So-
our concern was just the light
Yeah.
shining on the houses across the way, and obviously giving some type of barrier, visual barrier
Yeah.
for the neighborhood to, give a buffer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we wanted it to be opaque and.
Yeah.
If you would, again, we're on, this is on TV, so we need to speak and use the mic and identify yourself, if you would like to make a comment.
The other thing that I was thinking is that we'll look at what was just said about the fence that's there now and see whether that is a better fit than the stockade, than a short stockade. We're not talking about a high stockade, we're talking about a short stockade. And I could run that past Josh for staff approval as to which one would be
Yeah,
the
I'm just wondering,
better
maybe we could
choice.
have a meeting with staff and the two neighbors that are here this evening that may have not gotten notice, who are directly perhaps affected by it. Maybe a quick conversation after the meeting
Oh, sure.
to,
Yeah, we could do that, but I could certainly plan to have the applicant look at the fence that's out there now and see if that would be more attractive. Maybe then, we all know what a short stockade
well, I'm
looks
just
like.
worried
Maybe
about
there's
the
something
lights.
better.
you
Right,
know,
no,
if
that it
there's-
would satisfy that.
Where it's elevated 4 feet higher than the road, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, which is why I thought stockade first. But if, folks who live out there are saying maybe that wouldn't necessarily be the best approach, we could run that by Josh.
I could include a condition that says fence final review and approved by planning staff with the chair, something like that. And I feel like we could probably get there, probably.
Yeah, I'm fine with, I just think it should be more opaque. That's all. What do you think?
Yeah, so would we think then, more in terms of cover, what, maybe have a condition like appropriate fencing that is to help reduce light intrusion into the
Like screening or.
Screening, buffering, screening, yeah.
appropriate. Okay.
Sir, you had another follow-up question, if you would, Mr. Martel?
So I just have 2 more points. I would hope that the applicant would be willing to accept that condition of increasing the parking this substantially, that there would be no employee parking on Old Maple, and I would hope that that would be ensured. I would also ask that added to that condition could possibly be some signage added to Old Maple that there is no parking in that area to deter any employees or visitors and clients to that location. They wouldn't park there. I understand that everyone did hear my concerns for the rear exit and entry that can be used there. That is not used for access mainly by any customers of that, but it is used for an egress at times for it. I don't believe that was spoken on in length. I feel that that was glossed right over by everyone. So again, I would just like to reiterate that. I would also like to just say that I believe your co-chair, I did identify that there was no notification made to a direct abutter. I'm well within 300 feet.
He's
I would
the
ask.
clerk.
I'm the
I'm
clerk.
chair.
Yeah, he's
Say
the
that
chair,
again?
it's no co-chair.
So I'm sorry, I'm not sure what your title is, but you're
He's the clerk. He hasn't earned the
so
chair status
your
yet.
clerk to your right did identify that there was
Chair in waiting.
no notification made, which I completely
Yes.
agree with. So
Yep.
what I would ask is that the board would take no action on this and table this until appropriate notifications can be made. If I wasn't, as a direct abutter, notified, then who else wasn't notified for either zoning, conservation, and obviously planning? So with that, I would ask that the board would take no action or agree to table this until proper notifications can be made and the neighborhood can have the direct input on it and on the impacts. Thank you.
Well, on that particular request, we do have a notification in the planning package. And again, that is certified by the assessor's office, so.
He did just say that I was not notified.
I understand that. But that is not the applicant's, the applicant doesn't send it out. The assessor's, actually, the staff sends it
No.
from the town.
Not anymore, but
They used to.
we used to. But the applicant received the certified abutters list from the assessor, and that is the
So that
distribution.
came from the assessor. I wouldn't
Right.
necessarily blame the applicant on that.
Right.
But I'm glad that you're here, but I wouldn't entertain that motion of no action, because I don't believe that that's something that was within the control of the applicant.
I respect the history. There's two people here saying that they weren't notified.
Well, he was notified of a few of the meetings. Again, the error was perpetuated with the notices for this meeting.
I'd have to,
He did mention that his parents own the structure, and if they have a different address, then they may have been notified at that other, I don't know. You know, we'd have to drill down on that one, but in light of the fact that there's a list of probably, how many people?
It's,
It looks like 30 or 40 people that did get notice.
mhm.
You know, unfortunately, you're the one or two that did not get notice. I think that the vast majority of people did get notice.
I believe it's concerning direct abutter not being notified.
Well, again, you're here this evening, you've already commented a couple times, we're taking your input, and I think you've had the ability to be heard this evening. So, any other questions from the audience? Mr. Bradstreet, if you would.
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Couple of questions, unless I misunderstood. Should or could all of the employees and people bringing their animals to the hospital, could they all enter and leave by the driveway onto New Maple Street or Route 62, as opposed to using Old Maple Street to enter from the back, or however you want to describe it, front or back? The parking lights in the parking lot, I would prefer that, if living in the neighborhood, the lights are directed down on the parking lot, not out to, and using expensive, possibly decorative lighting. I don't think it's necessary. You're more concerned with lighting the parking lot for people using the property in dark hours, just like this parking lot here. Snow storage, I'm not sure if that's your purview. The other thing was the
It's on
plan.
there, yeah.
Excuse me?
It's on the plan. It's
Okay.
shown on the plan.
Just a question.
Yep.
And the plantings, whatever they are going to end up being, would they be reviewed in a certain period of time after growth has taken place to see if they're actually doing what has been asked, blocking headlights or views or what have you? I think that's one of the things I would be concerned. I don't think a stockade fence blocks very much, and I certainly wouldn't, if I lived in the neighborhood, I wouldn't want to be looking at a chain link fence. I think the vegetation is nice. When the hedges grow up, or the arborvitae, whatever they are, the decorative block headlights, they look a lot better. I mean, nothing worse than seeing a chain link fence with Venetian blinds in it to,
Yeah, it's not gonna be chain link. I think the applicant is agreeing to a couple conditions that we talked about. One being that the applicant is gonna agree to a condition that the applicant will not have its employees park on Old Maple Street. And that's a decision that's gonna be memorialized by this decision, which the enforcers of the traffic and the ways and signage and so on are the selectmen and the police in Danvers, so they would enforce that. In addition, and I'm not gonna speak for Nancy, but she can have the, Russ can again detail, just for you quickly, if you look at the, you can put up the lighting plan and showing any spillage from lighting plans. I believe that the lights are shined down. I'm not gonna speak for
Yeah,
the
no,
applicant, but they can, if you would, Nancy, maybe address those concerns by the applicant.
again, as a neighbor, I would certainly want the lights down, not flooding.
No, I'll let Nancy do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
They're required under the bylaw to be shielded and to be focused down. We provided cut sheets of the light fixtures, and we provided the photometric plan. And we are in compliance with the bylaw on lighting requirements. And in layman's terms, they shine down.
And in the lighting plan, nothing spills over off the lot. Everything is zeros on the whole boundary of the lot. If you look at the actual
Right.
plan, maybe you could put that up. I know it's not easy to
It's up.
make that out. but It's all zero. Mr. Bradsky, if you look at the perimeters, there's no spillover according to the lighting plan, and they are all shine-down fixtures that we require. Maybe, I don't know, to further, again, I don't think, maybe there's an internal thing that you can do with customers, welcome to our new renovated site. Please access the site through Route 62 and, use that. I mean,
I think as a practical matter, customers come in off of Route 62.
Yeah.
It is difficult to access this site and a bit more convoluted to come in off of Old Maple Street. You've got to take a side street down and then a left to come down. Customers come in off of Route 62. Employees, when they're parking in this back area, most of them are going to come in off of Route 62 also, and then they're going to park here, and they may go out Old Maple Street, or they may go out Route 62. I'm sure there's a mix as to how folks go out and which they find meets their needs.
well, I'm just saying, could we encourage them to use 62 as part of the operation of the site?
Sure. I mean, we certainly, in directions that are given to the hospital, are Route 62.
Right, but
not
employees
off
and
the site.
staff, we're asking them to not park on Maple and to access the site primarily only from 62, not from Maple. Because really, there's no reason why they don't need to anymore because they're not parking on Maple. Like you said, why would I go this crazy way out and I can get right onto Route 1, right onto 62?
As a practical matter, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this site has been operating this way for decades.
No, I understand, but you're adding a lot of parking to the site and you're improving the site and making
Right.
it ostensibly more commercial, if you will. I know it's 4 acres, but you're, in a, compromise with the neighborhood, I would appreciate that, if we could have that as a further,
a suggestion to the employees.
A-
That-
a notice to the employees. Strong, more
Ma-
than a suggestion, but a
Ma-
requirement.
Management or some type of operation.
Yeah, so we would like the, operationally, if you've been using Maple Street, that's gonna end when the new parking lots are in completion, and from now on, we're gonna go in and out 62. I think that would help, that would go a long way of being a good neighbor.
Well, I have to say, I do think going a long way to be a good neighbor is to get the parking off of Old Maple Street. Remember, this is a 1,500 square foot addition on the back.
Yep.
And that's what we're proposing. And we then have gone way above and beyond to provide parking on site. It is significantly more parking than required under your zoning bylaw. And we're doing that to meet the needs and to make sure that we meet the needs. To tell our employees, you must, and you no longer can access off of Old Maple Street. That Old Maple Street is a public way, and they should be able to do
I
that.
understand that, we're trying to be a good neighbor.
I think we're being, and I appreciate that, and I think we are with this plan.
Well, I appreciate that, but again, I'm seeking that from you. I don't know why you're fighting me on it, but.
I guess it's the wording.
Yeah.
We're going to tell our employees, we have agreed to a condition that they will not be able to park on Old Maple Street. And we can certainly, with that notice, say, please access the site off of Route 62. Yep.
Thanks so much. Ginny with NVA, and I work closely with the hospital. I think my concern, definitely understand and want to be a good neighbor, but we don't have management that's monitoring with 60-ish employees, whether or not they are or are not. And I just worry that we're then going to get in a scenario where we're going to have neighbors coming across the street and saying, a car left from here. And we're going to be like, sorry? How do we successfully police that? I think I'm very much with Nancy that I'm happy to request and try and be a good neighbor and encourage that as part of onboarding. But I think the policing of that is going to be just operationally really challenging.
About
You could put
signage.
signage, you could say, access to Maple Street for emergency only. If it's a fire, or maybe you have some type of, I can't see why you'd need to access that street other than a fire situation. Again, we take comments through the microphone because this is being videoed, so. Again, if you tell employees, you can park here, this is your parking lot, and you're gonna access it from 62, that seems pretty clear. To
I
me.
think it's just
don't-
hard to communicate and police for employees that you may not use a public
Put a sign up.
street.
You put a sign that says this is not employees, access.
And
Put
then
it in the
if,
break room, put it in the front door.
if they do, what are the expected ramifications? Are we dismissing employees because they've used a
No,
public street
again,
improperly?
We're trying to create a protocol when you use the building. And again, we're trying to stay away from the neighborhood side. We're gonna use this big access point onto 62. I don't think we're being unreasonable.
Okay.
What if the employees live on Old Maple Street? What if the customers live on Old Maple Street?
I'm willing to bet that's probably gonna be less than 1%. That's fine. I'm not restricting access, I'm just
Well, you
saying-
are if you're asking us to put signs. So
Okay,
the signage, we are willing to ask our employees and tell them, no parking on Old Maple Street, you can't do that.
right.
Even though that's a public street, and even though there is parking permitted on that street, we will tell our employees you can't park on Old Maple Street.
Saving them a long walk.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, but as far as leaving the site, I suspect most of them are going to go out through Route 62. But as far as policing it, we will tell them it is the preferred route is to go out through 62. That NVA is incurring a great expense to get their parking off of Old Maple Street, so we'd appreciate it if you access off of Route 62. That we will do. We'll notify our employees that that's the exit that we would like them to use.
Great. Anyone else on the board? Questions on that?
And so they agree to, just so I have it straight, so they notify employees of the, that Route 62 is the preferred entry and exit for employees.
All right. Other questions from the audience? All right, hearing none. Other questions from the board? All right.
No, any further?
Would you like to, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead, Lou.
Okay. A motion here, site plan review, 367 Maple Street. Date of application, August 4th, 2022. Date of hearing, September 13th, 2022. No public testimony. September 27th, 2022. Date of decision, September 27th, 2022. The Danvers Planning Board finds the site plan submitted by NVA Danvers Veterinary Management, Inc. for property at 367 Maple Street, Assessors Map 25, Lot 24, to be in substantial compliance with the criteria and regulations adopted by the town. Details of the plan review can be found on the following plan. Permit site, Danvers Animal Hospital, 367 Maple Street, Danvers, Massachusetts, 01923, prepared by Hancock Associates, dated August 3rd, 2022, revised to September 15th, 2022, consisting of 9 sheets. The following submission requirements have been waived. Section 4.3.1, title sheet, Section 4.3.1A, existing principal buildings are shown on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. Section 4.3.1B, the land use of each lot is not shown on the title sheet. Section 4.3.1C, all lot lines in a general manner are not shown on the title sheet. Section 4.3.1D, existing contours at 1-foot intervals are shown on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. Section 4.3.1E, principal natural features are shown on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. Section 4.3.1F, zoning district boundaries are not shown on the title sheet. Section 4.3.1G, recorded easements abutting the tract are not shown on the title sheet. Recorded easements abutting the tract are shown on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. 2, section 4.3.2, site analysis plan. No site analysis plan submitted. Existing contours are shown at 1-foot intervals on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. Existing trees are shown on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. Areas in the tract subject to easements, rights-of-way, or similar deed restrictions are shown on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. Wetland boundaries and wetland buffer boundaries are shown in the existing conditions plan, sheet 2, and layout and materials plan, sheet 3. A fence is shown on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. 3, section 4.3.3, dimensional regulations plan. No dimensional regulations plan submitted. The location of existing easements is shown on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. Proposed yard setback is shown on the layout and materials plan, sheet 3. A zoning table with lot area, yard setbacks, and building height is on the title sheet, sheet 1. 4, section 4.3.4, site construction plan. No site construction plan submitted. The location of the existing buildings and new addition are shown on the layout and materials plan, sheet 3. Existing and proposed contours are shown on the grading, drainage, and utilities plan, sheet 4. A delineation of vegetated wetlands with buffers is shown on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. The proposed location and dimensions of drives, parking areas, curb cuts, and driveway aprons is shown on the layout and materials plan, sheet 3. The location and dimension of streetlights are shown on the photometric plan, sheet 9. Proposed drainage system in general is shown on the grading, drainage, and utilities plan, sheet 4. Proposed landscaping in general is shown on the layout and materials plan, sheet 3. 5, section 4.3.6. Utilities plan, section 4.3.6B. The profile and size of the new water, sewer, or stormwater pipes are not shown on the plan. 6, section 4.3.7, landscape plan. The landscape plan is not prepared by a registered landscape architect. Section 4.3.7A, existing and proposed grades are not shown on the landscape plan. The existing and proposed grades are shown on the grading, drainage, and utilities plan, sheet 4. Section 4.3.7, C, small Roman 2. The existing trees to be removed are shown on the existing conditions plan, sheet 2. Section 4.3.7G, the method for protecting plants during construction are shown on the detail sheet, sheet 6. Section 4.3.7I, the yard setbacks from the lot lines are shown on the layout and materials plan, sheet 3. Section 4.3.7J, a table showing the percentage of existing and proposed impervious surface is not shown on the landscape plan. 7, section 4.3.8, off-street parking and loading plan. No off-street parking and loading plan submitted. The location and dimensions of maneuvering aisles, location and number of parking spaces, location of the building, proposed landscaping, and parking table with information are shown on the layout and materials site plan, sheet 3. Construction details and size and type of materials for surface paving and drainage facilities are shown on detail sheet, sheet 6. 8, section 4.4, a table of development data. No table of development data submitted. Administrative. The project is subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant agrees to satisfy all the comments in the Danvers Engineering Division memorandum dated September 22nd, 2022. 2, applicant agrees that employees are not to park on Old Maple Street and use the parking lots. In addition, applicant agrees to notify employees that Route 62 is the preferred entry and exit for employees. 3, appropriate fencing to buffer vehicular headlights intrusion. Appropriate fencing to buffer vehicular headlight intrusion, the details of which to be worked out between applicant and planning staff.
Yeah.
Is that appropriate? This project is subject to the attached list of general conditions. Compliance review of this site plan shall lapse within 3 years from the grant thereof if construction has not begun by such date. Signed, James Sears, Chair.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. Second here. The next item on the agenda, 75 Newberry Street, request for site plan review pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaw, submitted by 75 Newberry Street LLC for property in the Highway Corridor Zone zoning district. The applicant proposes a 93,580 square foot self-storage facility and associated site modifications. Assessors map 48, lot 33.
Hello again.
Hello.
My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, 75 Newbury Street LLC. With me tonight is the manager of the LLC, Mick LaFata. Also with me tonight is Jared Bastis. I always pronounce his name wrong. The project engineer, as well as Scott Cameron, also the project engineer, and Joe Latazos, I'm having trouble with names tonight, our project architect and designer. And we are here requesting site plan approval for the property located at 75 Newbury Street. This is the applicant is the owner of the property, and this is a multi-tenanted building at 75 Newbury Street located in the Highway Corridor Zone. And we are proposing a building renovation and construction at the southerly end of the building for a self-storage facility. This space at the southerly end of the building has had difficulty tenanting over the years. It had been a furniture store for a while. Most recently, it was a car dealership, and that has been vacant for quite a while now. And so we are proposing a self-storage facility that is a permitted use by right in the highway corridor zone. The plan that we have submitted as for site plan approval fully complies with all density and dimensional requirements in the highway corridor zone. No zoning relief was required for this project. This is a by right project. We are also requesting approval of an alternative parking plan consistent with other alternative parking plans that you have approved for self-storage facilities, a number of them very recently. The project does propose an expansion of the footprint and then 3 additional floors above the southerly end of the building. However, as you see in the zoning table on the plan, there is actually a reduction in impervious surface because of the landscaping that's being added to the site. You may recall 200 Commonwealth Ave was a self-storage facility that this board approved fairly recently. It's now under construction. The applicant is the principal in that self-storage facility, and the engineering and design team for that facility, which at the time that it was approved, we received lots of comments on the design of the building. It was very attractive. Again, the engineering and the design team are the same for this site, and as you see in the architectural plans that were provided with this application, this is a very attractive building. It's not your standard self-storage facility. There's lots of glass. There's nice building finishes that will complement the existing tenant space on the building. Before I hand it over to Jarrett to go through the plans with you, self-storage facility operations Monday through Saturday with an employee, that would be an attendant, 9:30 to 6. And 7 days a week, there will be access to the property via security code from 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. So I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Jarrett.
Hi, my name is Jarrett Bastis. For the record, I am with the Moore and Cameron Group at 66 Elm Street in Danvers, Massachusetts. I am here on behalf of the applicant, 75 Newbury Street LLC. I'm going to quickly review the civil plans that you should have received, and some of the information I will kind of be light on more of the technical aspects. So, if you look at the next page, Josh. So this is the, meter does not seem to be working. So this is the existing condition. We have a approximately 28,000 square foot building.
Should grab the microphone.
Working around.
Yep.
So sorry. We have approximately 29,000 square foot building in the middle of the site, surrounded by a parking area, 128 spaces. If you want to flip through the next page. So the applicant is proposing demolition of this section of the building, along with additional parking and pavement area to be removed. So if you see this line, Josh, if you want to just zoom into this section a little bit. So this is the section of building that is to be removed. And then this section, this dotted line, is the edge of the proposed pavement. Through here. And then we've got pavement removal around here. There. Go to the next slide there. And now going through the site, I'll run you through the circulation. So there is a ramp off of Route 1 that we would imagine people coming in through. Entering through the back, we have two-way circulation through here. In the rear of the building here, we have loading bays that are fully pull-in, so the truck can come in and pull in and fully move in. Those are covered. And then we come around the site. We have, again, two-way circulation that comes around. Back here, we have, these are overhead doors that will be for direct access storage units. And then we'll come around again. We have two-way circulation. This is to the main parking area. We've added 5 additional spaces here, 2 handicap spaces, and made some adjustments to create a better turning radius. And then we have full access, again, two-way access out to Newbury Street. We've added 51 spaces. Sorry. We have 81 spaces proposed. 46 we've dedicated to retail, where 33 are required. 30 spaces are dedicated to the healthcare facility, where 17 are required. For the self-storage, we're dedicating 11 spaces to that. The zoning bylaw requires 128 spaces, and that's based on a ratio of 1 to every 5 units. We use the ITE parking generation figures, which is a guide that's used for engineers and planners, and uses real-world data about what is actually being parked on. And their ratio is 1 for every 9,000 square feet. So that's why we felt that 11 spaces would be appropriate. And then Josh, if you want to move on to the next. I'll run through the grading and drainage here. So we are doing a retrofit of the existing system. We've kept some catch basins along here in place, and we've added new catch basins, new drainage structures. As a result of this proposed redevelopment, we are reducing impervious area by approximately 4,000 square feet. And we will also have a new hydrodynamic separator, which will provide treatment for all the impervious area within the strange area on the site. Move to the next sheet, Josh. And then we will also extend new utilities off of Route 1. So we'll have domestic and fire water service, a relocated hydrant on the site, a sewer service, and then a fire department connection at the rear. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. Let me raise this up. My name is Joe Latosis with Design House Architecture. Thank you for having us this evening. So I'm here to talk about the building design and some landscaping. So if we can go to the building elevations, or if you have the renderings, we could take a look at those. There we go. Let's look at the pretty pictures. So we're proposing a contemporary building style that kind of fits in with the with this kind of movement and storage to make it look more like a retail building, kind of like a higher end retail or even office, and move away from that kind of big boxy, ephes or metal panel, even though we have metal paneled building. And we're achieving this by using a mixture of materials. We have some brick, we have some metal panels, lots of glass. We have some wood accents. We have some stone accents to kind of break the massing of this building down into kind of more manageable pedestrian forms. We took into account the speed at which cars travel along Newbury, took that into consideration, took into consideration the kind of the style of the adjacent buildings, and with all those things and the kind of design features we used at the other project, and came up with this kind of design scheme. We think is pretty attractive. We have this kind of giant end cap that's all glass that'll house the office on the first floor. Then there'll be you'll see storage doors along on the second floor. And that's kind of that, that kind of retail component that you'd see in a kind of modern mall. And then kind of this big ornamental crown or cap on the top that kind of addresses the highway speeds of a car to kind of bring the attention to the building without being too overbearing. So we wanted to do something that was attractive, something that was easily noticeable and easily findable, something that didn't stand out too much, wasn't too loud. So we kind of used these muted earth tone material, color palette, the brown brick and the kind of grayish taupey metal panels and that natural wood accent.
What is the other color? Is that purple or orange?
It's kind of like a dark magenta,
what?
dark maroon.
Maroon, okay.
It's kind of to play off that kind of dark mahogany wood color. Kind of doesn't come off very well on the projector screen here.
Like a PC color? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
That's a good.
Let's try to put it in perspective.
There you go. That's a great relation.
We don't want another chocolate box. We have one already.
That's right. For the landscape, we wanted to provide an attractive landscaping with some foundation plantings around the building wherever we could, along Newberry Street and along Pope's Lane. That little triangle piece at the corner of Pope's Lane, we're introducing some new trees to go with the existing trees, just to kind of fill that in, and then update a little bit of the site landscaping adjacent to the building. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions or concerns you may have, or provide additional information.
Great, thank you.
I think that is it. Jarrett touched on the parking, and the alternative parking plan follows the ITE guidelines, but also it's consistent with the recent alternative parking plan that you approved for 495 Maple Street, which was a self-storage facility that's under construction. The extra space storage, which is behind this on the other side of Pope's Lane, also has almost double, a little more than double actually, the square footage, and it has the same number of parking spaces as we're proposing here. And again, 200 Commonwealth Ave was similar. So we think the parking is appropriate and is supported by the ITE data. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Could someone just for my benefit, go over the operational workings of the site on a given day, where you have kind of a operational and directional for traffic, and you've got several garage doors? Is there an elevator? How would would you want to drive your customers from Newberry Street? I know you can come from the other way, or can you just kind of go over the operations of it?
You want to do that, Jared? Or
How that would work?
Joe?
So our concept is that the office location is going to be visited by the first-time user, or a person that's coming to pay a bill, although 90%, 99% of the time, it's going to be an online credit-based transaction. But typically in storage, once you get your unit, you don't usually visit the office. You usually go directly to the loading area and enter and exit the site through that. So the office is going to be reserved for the first time person looking to rent a space. Everybody else that currently has a unit will enter the site in the rear through Pope's Lane. That's where the major loading area will be. So that area has a drive-in covered loading. You can drive a decent-sized U-Haul into, not the giant one, but you can get the medium-sized one. Backed up into there, open the doors, it's snowing, raining, whatever. Unload all your belongings, throw them in your unit and drive off without getting completely ruined by the weather.
So you can pull all the way in.
Pull all the way in.
And
Yep.
is there an elevator?
There is an elevator.
Where is that located?
So there is an elevator directly in that loading area.
Okay.
So right at the back of it is the elevator, so you can go all the way up.
And there's several doors there? How many doors along that section?
So there's one, we can go to the back elevation, or the north elevation. There's one big overhead door, and then there's sliding.
Oh, yeah.
There's one big 16-foot by 14-foot overhead door.
Okay.
And then there's a 12-foot wide sliding door. So if you were to park outside, you could still access that loading area. The smaller doors you see on the end of the building there are direct access to 10-foot by 30-foot deep individual units. So if you were to go get your own unit, you'd have direct access to it. So if you were storing something that you needed access to on a regular basis, as opposed to having something that was inside that you would have some sort of longer travel distance. This allows you to have that direct access on a daily, if you wanted to, basis. So that's kind of our circulation idea, how people will access the site. We imagine as soon as you get your unit, 90% of the access is going to be off that Pope's Lane, because that's going to be the easiest way to access that loading center of the building.
So on this side here, that's on the left here inside, I don't know if that's,
Yeah.
I guess, southerly side? The one you're showing with all the doors down below here?
That is the, yeah, that is the south side.
So, I'm just wondering is that something where you'd have, say, a contractor type storing supplies and so on, and using it regularly like you mentioned versus the average residential user putting something in there and maybe
Right, it could be
looking at it
a
few times a year?
contractor, it could be someone that does, drop shipping or, a number of different things.
So I'm just worried about, I'm just wondering about the circulation around the building, where you're encouraging people coming around, where people are coming in and out to access at, 7 in the morning to get their supplies for the day or what have you. How much area, how much room is there, I guess, to do those maneuvers where you're not gonna be perhaps backing all the way into the unit like you would up above in that other section, but you're gonna be probably parking outside that unit?
Right, so there's a 10-foot wide loading zone, and then the 24-foot wide drive aisle. So there's 34 feet from the edge of the building to the curb
Okay.
in front of those doors, which is 4 feet greater than the average distance, the kind of storage standard of drive-up door to drive-up door is a 30-foot distance.
And sight lines coming around the corner there, sight visibility,
Yeah, that's why we kind of angled that kind of loading area off a little bit to give a little more access, and pulled that drive aisle out even further along Pope's Lane.
Is that gonna be crosshatched on the pavement itself?
Yes,
So there will be,
yes.
will there be signage or just,
Yeah, there'll be signage, it'll be crosshatched. There'll be bollards in front of the building, in front of the doors.
so those are the two main entry points for storage?
Yes.
So nothing up above near the office? Or on the other side here, I guess the westerly side?
No, just the entrance to the office.
Okay. So
Yeah,
people
so
aren't
no-
gonna be bringing anything up with their trucks up here? It's all gonna be in the very rear, or if they have one of
Maybe
those?
some small, someone bringing a box or someone going to collect something. They
Okay.
might run in through the office to the elevator. But the majority of the loading and unloading that's gonna happen, if not all the large unloading and loading that's gonna happen, is gonna happen through that rear loading area.
So you're gonna not encourage people to go to the front because
Right.
you've got a lot of
Right.
retail space and so on, that you don't wanna have people out there with dollies and stuff
Right.
walking around?
Right, yeah, not in the front, no.
So
But when
they're
my
gonna know.
mom throws my old baseball cards at me in my little tub, I might just, stop and get some cookies and then run them up to my unit and then
Okay.
go home.
No, I was just wondering how the site's gonna operate. That's helpful. I appreciate that. Questions from the board? Jean?
I think the building looks great. I do have a question. I noticed the extra space storage that was built just right next door has solar panels on the roof. Have you considered that at all?
We have not considered solar panels. He is right now, maybe? So, storage is a good opportunity. I do a decent amount of storage. Storage is a good opportunity with its flat roof to do solar. Some parts of the country it makes a lot of sense. Some parts of the country it doesn't. I'm from the Midwest. It doesn't a lot of the time. But it's something that,
Thank
maybe
you.
Is
interested.
that what you say? Okay.
Other questions? Jean?
No, that was my only question.
All right, Lou?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I'll also echo Jean's remarks too in terms of the building. I think it's a nice looking building, and it's nice to be that you sort of, it's not just the big box. It has some interest to it, so I think that's good. I did have just a question with respect to sort of, again, the circulation, because I know that also you're seeking a waiver as to the width of the drives around, I think from 24. I know there's 24 on, I guess, the south side, but then it's going to narrow down to 20. And I just wanted to just ask in terms of, is there any concern in terms of circulation of large trucks, fire equipment, anything of that nature, by going down from 24 to 20?
We don't have any parking or anything associated, so there's not any movements. We also, this is very more incidental use. There's not going to be a lot of traffic coming along through here. It's really only going to be people accessing, maybe they've missed their turn, they have to come back and come in through here or enter into their units here. So we're not really anticipating a lot of traffic coming through here. So we just didn't really think that 24 was necessary.
But it's still a sufficient, it's still a sufficient width for large vehicles to pass if
Yes.
necessary?
Yes.
And also with respect to the office, I know that some storage places also will have, they'll have it's not just an office, they'll have a retail operation as well. They'll sell boxes, locks, moving blankets, things of that nature. Is that something that this is anticipated here as well, as opposed to, which would be potentially more than just the first-time user coming in? It may be, oh, I need to buy a padlock, or I need to get some boxes.
Yes.
Okay. Is that typically, in terms of, is that typically does it get a lot of traffic when you have an operation like that? No?
No.
I think it's a typical accessory use for all
Sure.
of the storage facilities, and, you know, they'll sell some, and not a lot. It's pretty rare.
Okay, got it. Let's see. I think you covered the other questions I have, so I don't have anything further.
I think it's a nice-looking building, and I think that, the design, just like the other one you did, is an improvement on a lot of the storage-type buildings we have in town, so I appreciate that. Just a question on, again, operationally, how do we control what's being stored in the sense of maybe hazardous materials or, things of that sense?
Do you want to handle that? Do you have a regulation against that?
I would think you probably,
So under the S1 building use group, there's a certain list of things that can and cannot be stored in the building. So there's a whole list of hazardous things that cannot be stored. And when you sign up to get your unit, typically you have to sign a waiver that you're not going to store any of these hazardous materials within
do we
the
have
unit.
cameras that can
There's
watch
lots
what's
of
being
cameras.
stored? And so if we saw a violation,
24-hour video camera. So yeah, if it were to be found that there's any hazardous materials or anybody staying on site longer than they were supposed to, or any other things that were happening, it would be dealt with immediately.
and then are we fully sprinklered, I'm assuming?
Fully sprinkled, yeah.
Do we have anything beyond sprinklers for, like dry, it's all wet?
It's all wet.
Okay.
It'll be wet.
As far as you mentioned signage, directional signage for, first-time users and so on, trying to shift people to Pope's Lane, do you have a depiction of the signage? Do we have that on the plan, or do we know where that's gonna be located?
As the building signage or the,
Just wayfinding signs for, again, new people and people coming up Pope's, and just to, do we have that type of signage?
I don't believe we have any wayfinding signage indicated on the drawings. You don't have any wayfinding signage. do you?
Okay.
We actually, when we met with Mr. Morris to go through the plan, we talked about having some small directional signage. Primarily, we were talking about pavement markings on the ground, but the bylaw does permit 4 square feet, 4-foot high, kind of little directional signs that we'll put up to guide people to the office from coming in off of Pope's. And we can have a sign that says loading dock in the back and that sort of thing. Just some small type of exactly that wayfinding signs so that people can make their way around and they're not confused.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the board? Hearing none, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question on this matter, if you would identify yourself and come to the mic. Mr. Bradstreet?
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. At the perimeter road, has the fire department determined that their ladder truck can reach the upper floor? That's one concern I had. I'm glad you mentioned about the hazardous or combustible materials not being stored on the property. I think that was an issue with another storage facility, but does the fire department, do they have to sign off on this to say that their equipment can do what it's supposed to do if there were a fire in the top of this building, and also to surround the building?
Yeah, no comment.
Just a concern.
I'll let the applicant answer the question.
The answer is yes, the fire department reviews all of the plans that come in for site plan approval.
And they, Lou, you mentioned on the comments, they had no comments on the plan.
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct. They reviewed the plans and they, in an email, the fire department said they had no comment on the project, so generally if there is an issue or a concern, that would be indicated at that point.
Thank you. Other questions from the audience? Sir, if you would, please use the mic, identify yourself.
Hi, Jared Waterman, Precinct 2, meeting member. Can you put the picture back up on that we were talking about circulation? Back up again? All right. I guess my first question would be, I guess any of you guys can answer this, but is this I know most storage facilities are gated. Is that the idea around the outside to enter, or no? Like, so would there be a gate here? Is there a gate here? Is there, like, no gates on the facility? Okay. So my second question would be, so there's enough space to turn around within here so that you don't have to use the public way of Pope's Lane to back into this facility, or? Okay, so you can make a full turn, come in here, turn around without coming out past that to back into these facilities if there's a truck already there? Okay, so there's 2 loading doors here? 1 loading door, okay. So they come in, they back in. All right. My concern with, you were mentioning signage, would be if someone coming to this facility misses, either comes in the front, what is the plan to get them around to the back to the loading dock? Is it to go around the left side of the building or go through the parking lot itself to go around to the loading dock? So they'd go okay, all right. Yeah, I guess all I would ask for is signage, somewhere out here for a right turn only, because going the other direction does lead into a neighborhood that doesn't need any more traffic than it already has. So if there was some kind of signage that if they're gonna come and go from this spot, the idea would be to use this entrance down here and not go down to the other end of Pope's Lane. And I don't know how we can accomplish that through signage, but that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Other questions from the audience? All right, any further questions from the board?
Just a question in terms of, is there anything, I know you had mentioned some signage, is there anything we need to, is the applicant committing to do anything with respect to signage, I guess?
I believe so. Nancy?
As a suggestion was just made, we would take a condition of right turn only coming out onto Pope's Lane, so we can put a sign there. And then we'll put an office sign with an arrow for anybody coming in off of Pope's Lane. I don't know that we need any others. Mr. Morse, did you think that we needed any other directional signage when we met? We had talked about for the office.
I mean, it was a sort of similar conversation that we had this evening, just speaking about, operationally, where was the main, doors that the majority of people would be using. I thought the pavement markings were a tool or something that would be helpful. Yeah, I mean, it appears that the Pope's Lane entrance and exit is probably going to be the one that's utilized most, especially as the applicant indicated, after going to the office for the first time. Once someone kind of gets the hang of how this facility is utilized, I'm assuming that the majority of folks will be using that Pope's driveway. So
Yeah, so we'll put the office sign with an arrow there, and we'll do the no left turn for exiting onto Pope's Lane. So you have, or right turn only.
Right turn only. Okay, so right turn only sign and a directional sign, an office directional sign with arrows for customers coming from Pope's Land.
Yeah.
Okay. Further questions from the board? Hearing none, this is a public hearing. I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved?
Do I have a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, Lou, if you would read the decision.
Okay. Site plan review, 75 Newbury Street. Date of application, August 17th, 2022. Date of hearing, September 27, 2022. Date of decision, September 27, 2022. The Danvers Planning Board finds the site plan submitted by 75 Newbury Street LLC for property at 75 Newbury Street, Assessors Map 48, Lot 33, to be in substantial compliance with the criteria and regulations adopted by the town. Details of the plan review can be found on the following plan. Site redevelopment plans, 75 Newbury Street, Assessors Map 48, Lot 33, Danvers, Massachusetts, prepared by the Moore and Cameron Group, Inc., dated August 15, 2022, revised to September 22, 2022, consisting of 18 sheets. The following submission requirements have been waived. 1, Section 4.3.1, Title Sheet. Section 4.3.1B, the land use of each lot is not shown on the title sheet. Section 4.3.1C, all lot lines in a general manner are not shown on the title sheet. Section 4.3.1D, existing contours at 10-foot intervals are not shown on the title sheet. Existing contours at 1-foot intervals are shown on the site analysis plan, sheet C1. 2, Section 4.3.2, site analysis plan. Section 4.3.2A, existing contours are shown at 1-foot intervals. 3, Section 4.3.4, site construction plan. Section 4.3.4D, the proposed location and dimensions of drives, parking areas, curb cuts, and driveway aprons are shown on the dimensional regulations and off-street parking and loading plan, sheet C4. The location and dimension of streetlights are shown on the photometric plan. Section 4.3.4G, proposed landscaping in general is shown on the landscape plan, L100. Section 4.3.4HA, H, a proposed limit of work, LOW line, outside of which no land is disturbed is shown on the site preparation plan, sheet C3. A table indicating amounts of earth material that are to be removed, added, or reused on site in cubic feet is not shown on the site construction plan. 4, Section 4.3.6, Utilities Plan. Section 4.3.6B, the profile of the new water, sewer, or stormwater pipes are not shown on the utilities plan. The size of the new stormwater pipes is not shown on the utilities plan. 5, Section 4.3.7, Landscape Plan. The landscape plan is not prepared by a registered landscape architect. Section 4.3.7A, the existing and proposed grades are shown on the site construction plan, C5. Section 4.3.7 CI and see small Roman 1 and Roman 2. The existing trees to be retained and removed are shown on the site preparation plan, C3. Section 4.3.7I. The yard setbacks from the lot lines are shown on the dimensional regulations and off-street parking plan, sheet C4. Section 4.3.7J. A table showing the percentage of existing and proposed impervious surface is shown on the dimensional regulations and off-street parking plan, sheet C4. 6, Section 4.3.8, off-street parking and loading plan. Section 4.3.8B, construction details and size and type of materials for surface paving, drainage facilities, and curbing are shown on construction details sheets C7, C8. 4.3.8D, provided landscaping is shown on the landscape plan, L100. The following requirements from the zoning bylaw have been waived. 1, Section 10.3G, width of access drives and parking aisles. The project requires that all access drives and parking lot aisles for two-way traffic shall have a minimum width of 24 feet. The project proposes an access drive for two-way traffic around the self-storage facility with a width of 20 feet. Administrative. This project is subject to the following condition: that the applicant provide a right turn only sign at Pope's Lane and an office directional sign with arrow for customers coming from Pope's Lane. This project is subject to the attached list of general conditions. Compliance review of this site plan shall lapse within 3 years from the date from the grant thereof if construction has not begun by such date. Signed, James Sears, Chair.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jean. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Good luck. Thank you. All right, I don't think we have anything else. No meeting minutes for this meeting to review. Any other matters for the board?
Not at this time. Our next meeting on the 11th, there's one item as we
Okay.
speak.
We'll double check with the applicant to make sure they're going to attend that evening.
They probably will. But I will keep the board of it, all information, so.
Did we get any input from Aaron on our discussion at the end of the last meeting where we talked a little bit about planning perspectives and getting input from other boards?
I did speak to him about that. Not to give him homework, or we did discuss, without finalizing a date, but we did discuss internally about having some type of broader land use kind of conversation with all the regulatory boards in our division, and how that would be beneficial to kind of have like a macro level conversation. We threw out, if I'm sometime potentially in November, to potentially doing something like that, but we once a date and an evening or a meeting to have these types of conversations is confirmed, obviously circulate it with the board, and as giving the the group obviously as much time as possible, to schedule something. So
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.